can you kind of tell us what you think about from that perspective as well? As it's not just him. I'm sure a lot of you kind of share that opinion.
On Anthony, sorry. On Anthony, you said?
No, I'm sorry. I'm talking about all throughout the draft. Like the level of athletes that you guys are chasing. And, the freak athletes is what I'm saying.
No, that's something. I mean, Chris preaches it, and we just really harped on it. Don't ignore traits. Okay. I mean, some guys are just too big and fast to fail. Now, obviously, they can't have any like really bad character. We're not going to take the shot then, but sometimes they're just too big and fast to fail. I mean, you're talking high floors, right? We always talk floor and ceiling. When they're that talented, the floor is just so high. Okay, we're at least going to get this. You know what I mean? So it's like just go with it. That's what coaches are paid for.
Morocco, Chris said that you've been texting him about Anthony back in like August. So you've been following pretty closely since then?
Yeah, well, I mean, we all have our areas and our schools. So just between myself and Chris, like Chris and I started scouting the same year, 20-some years ago. So it's not all the time, but if I see something that's pretty rare, I'll send him a text, or you see a play on tape and it's kind of wow factor and I feel like it's worthy of sending. So just back back then when I went to the practice, saw some things at the practice I had never seen, and then shot him a clip from the tape I was watching that day. But pretty much just to kind of send an alert, so at that position, knowing that we're going to be looking at that, and then you see something that rare, just back and forth between he and I.
What did you see specifically? I'm sorry. What did you see specifically that just blew you away?
I guess just he had like a bounce to him as he was just running up and down the field and rolling out. Whatever he's doing throughout the course of the practice, it just had like a different kind of a bounce and rhythm to it. And then the ball just came out of his hand. It looked like, the closest thing I'd seen maybe is like Michael Vick, the ball come out of his hand. So everything just looked easy. So you kind of take a double take to see like, man, is this real? And I'd seen him play in the summer. I hadn't been to just see him live, and that was just at a practice. And so it was kind of just, things like that you don't see often kind of stick in your head. So
Morocco,
it was unique.
It was so unique that it totally outbalances the fact that he hadn't played a lot.
Correct, because you're not going to see that.
Play
Yeah.
a ton.
And I sent Chris just to be funny. I was like, man, you could charge admission to watch this guy throw if he was like going to practice. He's like, it'd be like a circus just watching him throw. And then his body, he looked like he had the body like a defensive end, and just how he moved. And so you keep watching. I know he struggled early in the year, but you still saw the flashes, and then he started to steady his play out. And then it just takes time. But when you see guys, to Ed's point, we're always looking for traits. This year we were trying to be more explosive. That's what we wanted to become. And then he, as the first pick, kind of signifies that.
Ed, what was the discussion like about his accuracy in the draft room? Because that's got to be something you guys worked through and talked about.
Yeah. No, this was. I'll give Brock credit. He was fired up about him from the start, and I went down there early in the year, and he wasn't playing as well. And it's just a hard study, right? Because you hit on it. 13 games played total. Okay, last year, I'm talking his sophomore year, threw like 60 balls, and there's really not an accurate grade on the scale for a guy that, okay, he's got blue traits, but there's no resume. And then the very little part that he has, it was a roller coaster all year. Like, I watched him like 4 or 5 times. Like, I was kind of like late. I was hard on him at first, and then the more I watched it, Chris hit on it, the poise. Like, I always just watch games. I'm kind of old school. Like, I don't want to watch all these cut-ups. I just want to watch games. But we have a cut-up that's Stu and the guys do that's like all throws under pressure. And that's where you see, like, all right, the dude's got natural instincts that some of these other guys did not. So you're going, all right, we can fix some things. And like the accuracy, I would say a lot of it is his feet. And I actually asked him about it one night. I'm like, hey, what do you think it is? And he said, he talked about that, you know, when he has, I go, why when you have so much
You're talking about
time?
Anthony, you asked
Yeah,
him directly.
I'm like, why when you have so much time, you're perfect protection, you'll just miss one. And then when you're under pressure and you have to move up, slide to your left and make the throw, it's perfect. And he's like, because I got all these people in my ear talking about mechanics, you know, there's like gurus for everything nowadays. So, I mean, I think that just shows he is accurate. He just needs to stop thinking about all this other ancillary BS that all these guys harp on all the time.
Golf shot.
Yeah, just play, dude.
Morocco, I'm curious how much you got to know Anthony in this process, how much you kind of scout the person and what you learned, I guess, about sort of the way he's wired.
Yeah, no doubt. That's a huge part of it as well. I knew some people in his camp prior to even going in there, so I was able to get some crucial background as to just who the person is. Right, we're not just scouting the player, we're scouting the person, but genuine person. He's authentic. I think he's a kind-spirited human being first and foremost. And then when you look at his past and some of the obstacles he's had to overcome, you say, man, I mean, football, I mean, it's the most difficult position to play in sports. But if he's been able to fight through some of the things that he had to in life, he and his family, just to get to where he is now, then you want to bet on that type of a person, you know. I mean, because a lot of the times, if you have the talent, we talk about leadership, you know, some guys are great leaders, some guys don't want to do it, but when you have that talent that you're not going to see but every 20-some years, and if you can put it together, the guys are going to follow you if you're a good person. So I think that's what he is first and foremost. He's a good guy, good family from a tough situation, and everybody you talk to, you know, you go through the school, especially like Ed's saying, you're trying to you're trying to poke holes in any way you can to make sure you're not seeing ghosts. But like I said, first quality human being, and then the story, we just build on it and build on it. But he's kind of passed all those tests all the way to the end of where we met with him, and then you can feel it when you talk to him.
Was there any comparison through all the years of you guys doing this to where you've got such a small body of work, but your eyes tell you this is there anything anybody compare it to?
I can't think of one. Not that I've done.
Yeah, I mean, similar to Josh Allen, but maybe even more in the tank. But you're right, he was talking about the resume. He hadn't played a lot.
Your eyes always says I need to see more, but when you see it, maybe you see enough.
Yeah. And then, I mean, what helps is when you have Chris, Chris can scout the players better than everybody. So we don't have to talk at Chris. We tell Chris what we think, and then he's going to tell you what he thinks. So I think the dialogue that we have in our draft room as we're talking, and when your GM is like an elite caliber evaluator, it makes it easier. Then that vision is relayed to the head coach. Our head coach is a straight shooter. So when he came in, he told us, hey, I'm looking for this at quarterback, this, that, and the third. So that helps narrow down what we're shooting at. And so then as we get deeper and deeper and we start doing workouts and meeting, then you kind of start to see like, okay, so we're looking for this. And do you have these two things versus, you know, what are the major things you have to have? And I think Ed always says, don't start with the end in mind. The further you go, you just kind of, the answer just happens as you do the work. Like just do the process and then the answer will come out at the end. So it wasn't like we knew the whole time. I mean, we knew he had talent, but then it's like, what are we looking for? What are we trying to do? What do we want our quarterback to be for the Colts as opposed to what everybody else wants?
And to Morocco's point, when did it become like a uniform decision? Like when did you all know, like, okay, if this, you know, this is who we're gonna recommend to, you know, to be the quarterback?
Yeah, so, you know, he kept it close to the vest. You know, he said something to me probably about a month ago. And to Rock's point about Anthony being genuine, authentic, like, listen, I went into this thing because of the limited resume, the stuff you're talking about, like what are we doing? Like, it's 13 games, like, that's where I started. By the end of it, the more time, and Shane made a comment to me, and this was back, you know, when he first got here, like, pretend they're, you know, this is a potential wife. Who do you want to marry? Who do you want to spend time with for 10 years? Okay? And just the more time I talked to Anthony, the more time I spent with him. Like I talked to him on the phone for like a total of 4 or 5 hours, and not last week, but like the 2 weeks prior to that. You know, he was here for a whole day. We were with him down there, and every time I spent time around him, you just like him. He's just a good guy. If he makes a mistake, it's not because he's doing something wrong or tried. It's just he didn't know, and that's where you're like, all right, he'll listen. He wants to be good, and you just like being around him.
You said, just to clarify, you were saying like you talked to him a month ago. Was that Steichen or Valley you were referring to?
What's that? With Chris and and Shane, yeah. And then I know Chris told the whole group, you know, he didn't want to tell the whole group right away because look, if he could be wrong, we could be wrong. So you don't want to tell the whole group what we're thinking, and it's not like, oh, we're worried something's going to get out of the building. It was just keep working through all the other players, all the other scenarios, and speak up if you feel something is, you know, there's a better option or you feel strongly about going another direction.
Rock, I wonder if you could just speak to, Jim Irsay said this earlier, obviously Houston was like the wild card, right? They picked Stroud, and then you don't know what's happening at number 3. What were those moments like? And then once you got your guy, what's the relief, you know, once it's done?
Yeah, well, it was it was some tension in there. It gets silent in the draft room right before we're about to pick, like every time. So we're talking, we're having fun in there for the most part, but you can tell when the countdown is coming, it's some tension with every pick, but with that one, obviously knowing is somebody going to trade up. And, you know, we didn't know. Now we did our due diligence, and you know, nothing was just by happenstance. But you don't know.
Felt like you had an idea of what was going to happen.
Yeah, but you don't know.
Right.
Yeah. So we knew we did the work on it. And then I'll give it to Chris. Everybody couldn't do that and sit there and say, look, let's let it play out, feel good about where we are. So it just shows his belief in, you know, the information he was able to find out, and his just belief in, hey, I think we'll be able to get the guy here. And then once we saw the trade and we saw that it was Houston, then it was this gigantic sigh of relief, you know, because once you know who you want, like he said, it's like, I like to say it's like the prom date. He says it's a wife. You don't want the second or third choice to go to the prom. You want who you want to go with. So we got our date, and then it was just exciting, especially when you have the GM and the head coach like on one accord, and then when the head coach lets you know, like, I like this player for this reason, and I think we can do this with this player. Then you're like, oh, okay. So nobody's gonna pick the player and then say something different than we said in the meetings. But it was just exciting. Everybody was happy about it. Obviously, it's a big void that we needed to get somebody in there, and there was a lot of work done. Like, as you know, last season was a long season, so everything leading up to here is like climbing a mountain, and it panned out, I think, the way that we wanted it to.
And you talked about the last question, watching film on Anthony and breaking down all his throws. What on film showed you? What did you take away from his running ability on film? I mean, 39 broken tackles last year, and he's a quarterback.
And that's probably the easiest thing to see. No, I mean that's.
Can you describe, like, I guess, the style of running and like what makes it maybe more unique?
Really fast, and then he's so big. I mean, when I was texting, I don't remember what it was, but Rock and I were texting, because I was going down there right before the LSU game, and I'm like, hey, what's this dude look like? And he's like, looks like a pass rusher, playing quarterback. Yeah. So, yeah, the size, he's hard to tackle, he's hard to get on the ground, and he's really fast. Like, he's not going to be this elusive, darty guy like Lamar. Like, he's just built different that way. But his speed is real. Like, you see that. I mean, there's legitimate speed there.
I went to LSU game. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Did you go see him play?
Yeah, South Carolina and a few others. Yeah.
Okay.
It's being able to. It's not even the style. It's just the arm and the legs.
Yeah.
Like the top 10 paid quarterbacks in the league, they're dual threat quarterbacks.
Right.
So if I'm in the pocket and I have the arm, or if the play breaks down and I can run, and when you have that type of high level just talent, you got to defend every blade of grass on the field, and you can't as a defense if I can run and throw. At some point, you know, you got the guy's not a finished product at all, but to have those traits like he's saying, it's just scary to defend the guy. And that's the one thing for me, out of all the quarterbacks, and I got this from Mike Shanahan back in the day, he would always say, who do I not want to play against? Who do I want to play against? And you're looking at it and you can say who's more polished or who's more this and that. He's the guy you don't want to play against. Because it's like Steve McNair, but faster maybe. Like those kind of guys can make 1 or 2 plays once they mature and they win, the game is decided by a couple of plays.